I just wanted to connect some dots in the beginning here. I'm preparing for the BELTA conference, which is coming up in May, and also looking forward to meeting a lot of the people who are here online. In Greece, I'll be in Athens as well as in Thessaloniki. And so I wanted to just kind of connect a lot of things. One of them is that Scott Thornberry just came out with a new book, which I just read, and which is based on language, on the topic language teaching methods. Look forward to seeing Scott in Belgium. So I wanted to concentrate on two things that Scott covers in his book, and that was task-based learning and problem or project-based learning. So let's just get going. I wanted to point out some reasons why we should be using task-based learning and project-based learning in our language classes. Let's get to number one. I think the most important thing is that task-based learning and project-based learning always helps to activate the 4 C's of what we call the 21st century learning. One of them is communication. And there's so many things that we can talk about when it comes to communication, but I always like to concentrate, especially at the B1 level, of getting people to speak and getting them to write. Then we get into creativity, and of course there's definitions of creativity, but when you're doing task-based learning and project-based learning, we always have to think about that at the end, some kind of product has to be created, instead of telling the students what to do, which I call prescribed outcomes. So let the students actually be creative and show their creativity by helping them to create products that they can use not only now, but in the future. And of course, collaboration. Collaboration is a very important part of second language acquisition. And I always like to point out that it's not collaboration between the teacher and the student that should come in the forefront, but the collaboration between students, like group work or teamwork, these are skills that they're going to need in the future for their jobs. So that's another reason for using task-based learning and project-based learning. And of course, I think the most important thing is critical thinking. We want to get students away from status quo thinking and group think. So task-based learning and project-based learning helps them to really get to higher levels of thinking and critical thinking. So move on to the next point here. Reason number 2 for using TBL and PBL. It helps teachers get away from chalk and talk, which a lot of people would call frontal teaching. The teacher takes on a totally different role when they're using task-based learning or TBL or PBL. And this is not standing in front of the class, but actually integrating with the students, working in islands, and helping them get through their projects. It reduces print and push is basically a good example of that is teachers standing in front of a copy machine for 30 minutes, making a bunch of copies and then passing them out in class, thinking that this is going to lead to second language acquisition. How long can you do that before the students get bored? So TBL and PBL helps teachers get away from print and push. It also promotes voice and choice. I truly believe that adult learners come to the table with a lot of life experience and should have a voice in what's going on in the classroom and be able to choose the products that they are creating within a TBL or PBL learning cycle. In the end, it also supports agency, and this is the fact, the quickly defined where students are able to act independently and make choices on and act on their own free will, especially with B2 learners, C1 learners. I actually sit down with students, conference with them, and help them to actually talk about the products that they would like to create, because this is something that they really need for their job or real life situation. Number 3, it allows for the integration of technology into the second language learning cycle. A lot of teachers might have some problems with technology, but for me, I'm required to use Moodle at the university that I teach at, and I do use Moodle for my private language school. So whatever learning management system you have available to you, use it, because TBL and PBL really help to integrate that and get students, going online and collaborating with one another. It also, I allow all my students to bring in their smartphones, their iPads, their laptops. Internet is always available to us, and this helps to integrate technology in another way as well. And I sit down with students, we come together, form little groups, and come up with ideas of what apps we can be using in this process of creating a project and a product, and also help them to develop their curation skills, because this is also a very important skill that they're going to need in order to effectively and successfully create a product for TBL and PBL. And every time I have a chance, I create QR codes and put them all over the place, put them on books and doors and windows for students to go to, so that they can get quick availability to the resources that I suggest to them. Number 4, it creates, TBL and PBL creates meaningful learning. How long can a teacher do activities in the classroom until the students start getting bored and start asking themselves, why am I doing this? That's probably a dangerous point for teachers, and they really do need to ask themselves, is what am I doing in the classroom that's going to help the students now and in the future? And I think TBL and PBL helps to create products that students will be able to use now and in the future. And then we come to the point of also, it supports a healthy second language ego development. Language is a very important part of how we see ourselves and how we communicate with other people in our mother language. And we need to find a bridge to help students really create the language that they need in the target language, of course, in this case, English, and help them to start to see themselves and the English language as something real for themselves, so that they can actually communicate in business situations or in private situations. We come to point number 5. TBL and PBL helps to optimize and energize the in-class learning experience. I have found through a lot of the language labs that I conduct at the university, where I rearrange the classroom and put students into islands and let them form their own groups, that the atmosphere is totally different. I allow them to bring coffee, there's music in the background, there's sofas in the room, and it helps to create a really positive and safe learning experience for them. It also optimizes the online learning experience. I do not only have classes with my students at the university, but we have online classes as well too, and kind of help them to manage their projects and get them get ready for the presentation of the end product that they produce. Time management, which I call here the mother of all problems. Students do have a serious problem with that, adult learners, and they have to learn how to work within a given amount of time in order to present a product. This is just the reality of life, and it's something that they will have to later deal with when they get a job, or something that they have to still deal with while they're working. And of course, think time. Very important is we as teachers sometimes ask questions in class and expect a quick answer. This is not always possible. Students really do need to be thinking about what they want to say, so give them some time to think about their answers, and TBL and PBL done right does allow for a good think time. Number 6, it reduces the dependence on text-heavy course books. I am not against course books. I actually use a lot of course books, but sometimes they're very text-heavy, and I like to have this. I sit down with the students and help them to adapt to what we're doing from the course book and move that on and create a task from the course book. The students create the task for themselves. After a while, they learn how TBL and PBL works. And helps to get away from the prescribed learning and the predetermined outcomes that sometimes course books have. And definitely, I think the most important thing here is it gets away from pre-given grammar structures. A lot of course books have, let's deal with the present simple, the past simple, the present perfect, but that's not reality. That's not the way people speak. It's actually a mixture of many different languages or different grammars, and I think this is extremely important that students get away from pre-given grammar structures. And for teachers, it helps to create reusable lessons. I always suggest to teachers, please keep a journal while you're doing TBL and PBL, because you might have to go back and reference that. We can never recreate the dynamics of a learning cycle. That's going to always be different. But I think it's very important that when we're doing TBL and PBL, that we do keep notes, because they do come in handy later on. Number 7, it supports skills learning. Every student comes to the table with some developed soft and hard skills, and we need to use that as a basis within the TBL and PBL learning cycle. And also it challenges students to learn new skills and develop new ways of thinking. Because I have access to computer rooms and laptops, sometimes the students have problems with PowerPoint. So we just stop the class for a while and work on PowerPoint and learn how to work it. And this makes them feel better. And they're also learning new skills. So number 8, promotes storytelling. Well, storytelling is a very important part of second language acquisition. People come to the table with a tremendous amount of first language experience and life experiences, and we should be using that as a basis. TBL and PBL help to bring storytelling to the forefront. People have stories to tell, and they want to tell them. And those stories actually sometimes are based on their social and cultural capital that they bring to the table, and how they see themselves and the world that they come from, and they need to really be able to transfer that knowledge and experience to the table. Am I getting close, Rob? Okay, and number 9, reinforces real-life workflows. Back to the things that people really experience in the real working world. TBL and PBL helps them to develop these workflows and helps them to get used to what's going to be happening in a real working environment. Am I almost there, Rob?
You're over. Keep going.
Okay, and number 10, I think the most important thing, I left it for last here, is TBL and PBL allows the teacher, and this is very important for students, to check learning transfer. Here, where we sometimes wait till the end to give feedback and assessment, TBL helps you to check it at intervals and helps the students actually to eliminate mistakes, so that when they actually present their finished product, they're able to actually present something that is really a very good product. So I think I made it. Thank you for listening.